Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to the first actual episode of Deliver It. This is an Agile Product Owners podcast. My name is Cory Bryan. I'm one of your hosts. The other host is Kim Andrikaitis.
What do you mean by actual?
Well, we did one episode that was kind of a beta episode.
Could you see me rolling my eyes from across the table?
No, I couldn't see that.
I believe that the beta episode was also an actual episode.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
This could be actual episode.
Well, it is going to be an actual thing that we discuss, sure.
Of course.
Okay.
It's good to be here, Cory, as always.
Thank you very much.
So I have to tell you something.
Yes.
All right. So I listened to our actual first episode.
Episode 0.
Yes. Yeah. And I realized something.
Okay.
And this is good because I'm going to call it like a retrospective.
Okay.
Right? I'm going to say this is my actual episode retrospective. I realized that I thought I was just kind of talking to you. Mm-hmm. And that, no, we have listeners out in listener land.
That's true.
And I'd forgotten about our listeners. And first of all, I'm deeply sorry for forgetting about our listeners out in listener land.
Up until last episode, we haven't had any listeners.
It's true.
So we haven't done a show.
So it kind of dawned on me that, I'm a visual person. Mm-hmm. I need to look at things. I need things drawn out for me to understand them. And I just need visual representation. So I have visual representation here in our studio.
Audience representation.
Representation. Mm-hmm. I went into my closet when, and I pulled out 3 stuffed bunnies.
Yes.
And they're my beautiful stuffed bunnies that we won when we were in Japan. And one of those little machines, that you pick up and then it drops. Mm-hmm. And one is pink, one is black and white. And the bunnies are here. And I like to think that they're the Poe bunnies. Not Poe as in they don't have any money.
Sure.
But Poe as in product owner bunnies.
Uh-huh.
And now I have my audience and they're sitting on the chair. And I'm just very excited that they're here with me.
They're looking at me.
They are. And they're very creepy.
It's kind of creepy. Yeah. They have red eyes.
They do, but they're so cute because they have long floppy ears.
Don't understand the red eyes.
Poe bunnies in the house.
But if it helps you, Kim.
I think so.
Then I'm all for it.
I'd like to say welcome, listeners. Welcome, Poe bunnies.
Okay. Very good. So I have to tell you, the last week, we had some weather conditions down here in Raleigh, North Carolina, where we're both at. Mm-hmm. So there was a thin layer of ice and sleet that was covering the roads. And if you know anything about Raleigh or the South, everything shuts down. So I was working from home all last week, trying to get through demos and retrospectives and planning sessions for upcoming sprints. And I really didn't like it, using tools to try to do some things that we always do, in the office with the team. But we got it done and the team was able to start. But man, you miss how much you can do with a team when you're in the office, when you have those situations.
That's true. Working from home as a product owner, I do it one day a week. And it's nice because I can really focus on writing stories, but I don't think I can do it more than one day a week. I think one day is pretty much it for me.
Yeah. And so teams that are working with, or product owners that are working with remote teams, or teams that are working with remote product owners, the tooling that you have to do and the extra effort you have to make to collaborate stuff, is something that, you really have to work at it to get it to be the basic stuff when you have a team that's with you, that you can do. So props to anybody who's doing that because I don't want to do that.
I did the same thing. I worked from home, I think 3 days last week. And one of the meetings I had a grooming session. So I was asking them, what's the point? And they were quiet. I'm like, okay, so it's a 3. And they were quiet. And I said, okay, guys, I can't see you nod your heads or shake your heads. Yeah. So yeah, you missed that collaboration being just on the phone.
All right. So now that we're into our first episode 1.
The actual episode.
We're into episode 1. Some things that came up in the last couple of weeks that we feel like everybody should know about. Mm-hmm. The first one, Kim.
So we've got the second annual Try Agile conference coming up April 16th at the McKimmons Center in Raleigh. What's really cool about this conference, and I think you were there last year, right, Cory? Mm-hmm. This year there's 24 speakers. The topics range from distributed teams to Scrum versus Kanban to documentation, acceptance tests, etc. It's supposed to be a really, really great turnout this year, and I know everybody's really excited. Right now, I believe the cost is $99 before March 15th. I'm not sure what it goes up to after that.
Like $129.
Okay, so yeah.
But it's cheap for conferences, one-day conferences. I mean, come on.
And they feed you.
They do feed you. It's really good.
Breakfast and lunch. And do they get beer at the end?
Not beer, but coffee.
Maybe they should get beer at the end. So I think that's really exciting. I'm definitely planning on being there.
Yeah, it's good. I think they're expecting at least, I think it was 500 people last year.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was crazy. And I think they're going to give about the same number this year. So
some more information on that can be found at tryagile.org if you're interested in signing up.
Yep. And we will be there. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. One other thing, I read a very good article. So one of the things we want to talk about is interesting things that we read in the times between, podcasts and things that we think are interesting. There was an article that I read by Greg Rosenberg. It was on LinkedIn on Pulse, called Enterprise Software Be Awesome. It was a very good article about why enterprise software or software you design for internal use, should be designed, should be tested, should be reviewed by people just like you were making commercial software. Because why would you treat people who work for your company any less than you would for a person who's paying for that? They have to use your app. They have to do their job with that app. Why shouldn't it be good? And why shouldn't it be? Why shouldn't you care about that? So that was a great article. We'll put a link to it in our show notes and also on Twitter if anybody wants to read that. But that was a great article. I really like that.
That's interesting. And why would you treat your internal customers any different?
People think, one of the reasons is because people think it's a cost savings, right? Oh, we don't have to do a design because it's just, the 60 people that work in that department that, it's care. What do you prioritize? Do you prioritize their work or do you want to save some money and get it out sooner versus have a good experience with your internal users? And I don't understand why you would do that. But I know a lot of people do.
Yes.
A lot of people want to go ahead and say, just get it out there.
Just cut the corners.
And they're just going to dump it to Excel anyway. So
right.
What does it matter? Pet peeve. Dumping things to Excel.
All right.
So one of the things we always are going to have is a main topic of discussion. This week, our main topic of discussion.
I think we should start with the basics.
Okay. Basics. Product owner basics?
Yes.
Okay. Let's be specific.
Product owner basics. Yes, Cory. That is our product owner podcast. Yeah, I think we should start with the basics. I think it's important that before we even move further into all the different intricacies of the role, that we just kind of start with what is the purpose of our role? What is the function of a product owner? What are the type of skills? That kind of a thing. So I was thinking about this over the weekend and, I thought, okay, well, what is a product owner? And then I'm like, oh, silly girl. Product owner is someone who owns the product. Clearly, let's just reverse
Ideally,
that.
yes.
Right. But what does that really mean?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I like to tell people about the role when I'm training somebody or when I'm talking about it is, and that's the reason we named the podcast the way we did, is we find ways to deliver value. Mm-hmm. Whatever value that is, whether it's business value, customer value, however you define value in your company or your product or your market, we as product owners help you deliver that. So we look for the value. We'll help you evaluate that value. The minimal viable product, the MVP, or minimal viable features, MVF that some people refer to, we find ways to get that out there first, get it out there in a reasonable amount of time, hopefully sooner rather than later. And we help kind of establish that value up front. We do that by deciding, hopefully, what to build and when to build it. So those are the two key things that I always come back to is, does this relate to what or when? So
not the how.
Never the how.
Never the how.
So what to build, features, stories. What are we actually doing? What are we actually trying to accomplish with this product or these features? When to do that? That goes to the scheduling, that goes to the planning, the release planning, sprint planning, all those things.
Prioritization of the work, the value.
So all those things are part of those two, what and when. The how is the team's responsibility. So we never go to them with technology mandates. You have to use this. We never decide for them how they're going to implement something. The team, as a self-organizing entity, is going to decide that for themselves to deliver the best product for the customer. So,
yes,
there are very few times when it's interesting when you take those two approaches, just what and when, never how. when you go into grooming sessions and you go into any other type of meeting with your team and they look at you and go, how do you want us to do this? Mm-hmm. And my answer is always, you guys figure it out because you're the ones who are implementing it.
That's right.
The only time I've ever done some type of technology choice is when the teams, I had two teams and they were trying to decide which way they wanted to implement something. One team said A, another team said B. We said, okay, we'll spike both of them. We'll do a research spike for both of them. You guys go away, figure that stuff out, come back and present to each other and to the audience. I was part of the audience. What do you think is the best option? They did it. They both gave the pros and cons, which is what I asked them to do as part of the research spike. And they came back and really, I didn't learn anything. They learned, what I learned was both solutions would work. One team was still adamant that their solution would be best. One team was still adamant that their solution would be best. So I had to be the tiebreaker. The way I chose the tiebreaker was what's faster to implement. Assuming everything else is equal, assuming that the maintenance costs and the amount of time to, build and support that, assuming or the support cost is the same. How long does it take? One team said 6 weeks. One team said 2 weeks. Guess which one I picked?
2 weeks.
Yeah, I did.
I love the fact that the developers were very conscious of, the work and the business value. And they actually took the time to spike it out and really look at the different pros and cons of each approach. Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that they were still adamant that my approach is the best. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. We want developers.
But they had that idea. At least they went through and they knew enough to say that at the end. The only thing I do come back with Hal is so in several organizations, in the organizations that we've been in, there are limitations you have. So when we're developing a new app in a company, that company may not allow anything but Internet Explorer 10.
Right.
Right? As sad as that is, that's a limitation of the company. That's not my limitation, but it's something that the team needs to understand that, okay, guys, we have this limitation. We can't build this in the latest version of Chrome or Firefox. We have to target IA10 for our users. Or we know that we're going to release this on an iPad. So we know we can't use certain technology. We know we need to use certain other technologies. And I'm not a technologist. I'm not going to sit there and code with somebody or even look at code. It gives me a headache. Mm-hmm. I've done some test automation, but that's about it. But I know enough to know when these guys are struggling with something or they have concerns about a certain technology. And to get them to decide that, that's where that how comes in.
That's a good point. There's definitely restrictions. I mean, if they can do whatever they want to do, imagine how much it would cost us.
Well, and how long it would take.
How long it would take. Yeah. So you kind of have to put a little box around the how.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
The other thing that we don't decide, although we have some input into, is the process, how things get built. So that's where we need to have agile coaches and scrum masters to help us. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as part of the questionable stuff, but I definitely think that what and when, and then we get into the how with the teams. Some of the other things the product owner does as part of that, you have to have your vision for the product. Mm-hmm. What do you want the product to do? In my mind, I always have 3 things that the product should do. And once we start hitting those things, then we've nailed our MVP and we can release or we can go to market or we can do whatever we want to do. But the product vision or the goal that you want to have for your sprints or your releases, we set those. The product owner is the one who comes up with those with the users, comes up with those with the clients, with the teams, make sure everything gels together so that we can come up with a good vision and a good goal. And really, what problem are we trying to solve as part of this? What will make our app successful when our users can do X? That's important.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's important that the PO, we have more than just one role. I mean, I believe that we're a cheerleader, we're the team's advisor, we're the paying audience because we do represent the stakeholders and our customers. So it's our job to champion the product and to provide the vision and the leadership to the team, because essentially we're held accountable at the end of the day. When we're demoing and, the stakeholder has issue with whatever we've done, we need to justify it. So it's important that, we are the source of information, that we do distribute the information between our customers, our internal stakeholders, our sales and support, whoever, and that we always keep the needs of the business in mind and the value that we are providing. So I think the collaboration's great between, the team members, and then the stakeholders and us. And, it's really important to have this relationship with everybody, because that allows us to deliver some really great outputs, and follow the process.
Yeah. That phrase that a lot of people have, well, not a lot of people. It's a controversial phrase. The single ringable neck is the product owner. That's what it was initially kind of touted as. Is that's the person who's in charge. That's the person who makes the decisions. That's the person who does all the things. And whether that is the only person that is accountable to that is kind of where people say, well, maybe not, because they're not the only one doing things. They should be setting those visions and the goals and making sure that everything is set up. But it's debatable whether or not they're the only ones responsible.
Correct. But in reality, if there's an issue, they're not coming to a developer or a tester and saying, why, blah, blah, blah. No, they're going right to the product owner.
They should be.
So, yes, in theory, sure, yes. Cory.
Well, we're going to talk theory. We're going to talk actual. We're going to talk real world examples. We're going to talk all that stuff. Some of the other things the product owner is going to be doing is backlog, maintaining the backlog, grooming the backlog, making sure the backlog has a relevant amount of stories that we need to do. They're going to be writing those stories, all types of stories, technical stories, business stories.
Research spikes,
anything that the team needs to do, the product owner needs to be aware of. They may not write all of them, but they need to make sure they understand them at least so that they can put them on the backlog for planning. Customer interaction. So we're going to talk to clients. We're going to talk to users. We're going to get information and feedback from them so that we can make better stories and we can change things as we go. Answer questions for the team. The product owner needs to be available for the team when they have questions about the stories, about implementations, about anything.
And, another thing, too, is to anticipate the questions that will be asked before they're asked. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking to your customers and you're trying to understand what you're delivering, ask the questions that are going to be asked of you.
Yeah, because I always like being prepared, but having that information for the team. Mm-hmm. So some of the information, and we've talked about this before, is we want to have good stories. We want to have information in the stories. I don't want to have all the information in the stories because I want there to be that collaboration and the back and forth between the product owners and the developers and the testers so that we can make sure we built the thing so that they understand what we're asking them to build. And I like that back and forth.
Yes, I think this would be something that we should table for a future discussion because, I have lots of opinions on that as well. And they don't necessarily align with yours.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
That's fine. Damn it. And then I think one of the most critical things a product owner can do is make decisions. At some point, somebody has to decide about which features are the most important, which things you should do first, answer a question that a developer has. And as the product owner, you should be comfortable enough to make those decisions, at least enough to where you can talk with a customer about them and get some feedback from them.
What's interesting is in the Agile process, you write stories, right? And you say, as a whatever, I want to do this thing because of this reason. And at first, when I was getting into the process, that would annoy me. Like, this is so much to think about. But now I tend to refer back to the business justification part of it, the value, that last bit of wording, because that does allow me to say, okay, the reason we're doing this is because of this. And instead of just making a snap decision, it really makes me kind of think through what's the value in what we're implementing.
Yeah. And several times I've been in so many situations where I've understood enough of what the customer is wanting or what the customer's goal is. Again, because we've set the vision, we've set the goal, we understand where they're headed, that if a question comes up that a decision needs to be made and they're unwilling to make it, I'm comfortable making that decision for them because I know where they're headed. Mm-hmm. And quite often we're right about it. I mean, we're not 100%. We may be 80 or 90%, but the majority of times we're close enough that we can pivot into in another sprint. We can change, whatever decision they ultimately make if they don't make it before the team needs it. So we're going into a sprint grooming or a sprint session. We're getting ready to start. A decision hasn't been made by the customer about where they want it, where they want an element or how they want data formatted or something else. The product owner can make that decision. They can because they've got enough information, we can deliver it, and then we can iterate on it next sprint.
Right. And as the product owner, you're advocating for the customer. So there has to be a two-way trust relationship where they can trust you to make the right decisions. And if you make the wrong decisions, okay, well, we'll just fix it in the next sprint.
Yeah.
So it's not the end of the world.
No, it shouldn't be.
No,
no, it shouldn't be.
It's not that important. It's okay. It can always get fixed.
We can change it.
We
right?
can change it, and that's the whole fun of it.
That's the mentality.
Nothing's set in stone. So I was thinking about what good skills product owners should have. And of course, I was thinking about myself first because, I consider myself a decent product owner.
I do too, by the way.
Thank you. And I thought about it and I thought, I ask a lot of questions and I kind of consider myself a nagging visionary. So in order for me to have the vision of the problem and come up with a solution, I have to be inquisitive. And I have to I said this before, check my ego out the door and not afraid to appear stupid. Essentially this is my product too. And I own the product and, it's okay to ask a lot of questions. So I kind of nag a little bit and ask questions. And that's only to make sure that we are creating the right thing.
Yes.
So then I was thinking about what else. And I think that we need to be creative. We also need to be fairly technical, not extremely technical because I'm not very technical, but a little bit technical. I think being creative is really important. Being curious and approachable because, you do have team members and they will want to talk to you. And I think it's important that they feel comfortable to talk to you about some of their struggles and challenges or maybe problems they have with you. And if you just kind of shut the door on them, you're not going to have that collaboration with the team.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, you've got to be available. You've got to be open. You've got to hear dissenting opinions. You got to hear other ideas, because reality is the best idea should win.
Right.
Right. Whatever it is, wherever it came from, best idea wins, within the parameters that you have. Right.
Yeah.
So obviously we'd love to release something on the newest technologies and do all these whiz-bang things, but sometimes we can't. So we have to live within that.
Yep.
But I think one of the things that, skill-wise, so I'm going to steal from Bob Galen, because he's a good person to steal from. But he wrote an article, that's available on his website, that talks about, the 4 quadrants of product ownership.
Yes.
He missed it out of his book, but it's important enough. I think he's updated it, but I really like the skills that he's got, the 4 skills he's got on there. Product management is one of them. So the ability to understand what the product needs to do, to be able to, put that vision in place. I think that speaks to the what. The project management side. So I don't like Gantt charts. I think Gantt charts are the devil.
I've seen you literally break out into hives when you've looked at a Gantt chart.
It bothers me. It bothers me. And the amount of time people spend investing in their Gantt charts.
They love their Gantt charts.
It bothers me.
I know.
But I think that some of the skills in product management, that's the win. So how are you going to schedule this stuff? What sprint are they going to go in? Understanding your releases and your cadence and those types of things. I think that's an important aspect of project management. I still would like to have some project managers on my team if it's big enough, because I want people to do the paperwork side of project management, right? To your point, I want to do the creative side. I want to do the team-based stuff. I want to do the roadmaps.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. The paperwork stuff.
Not so fun.
You know what? We can hire some people to do that. If I need to do it, I'll do it. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I'll always do what I need to. But project management, business analyst. You need to have a little bit of business analyst in you as a product owner, because you have to dig in and understand what they're asking for and how to write that as a story.
You have the 5 whys.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, 5 times.
Why?
And that's what you did before you became.
I was a business analyst before I became a product owner, and that served me well, I think, in this role.
Those skills. And really when you work on a team with business analysts, they can really help you as a product owner. They can help write the stories with you. They can help write the stories for you, which is great when you have that type of relationship with analysts. They can help give a lot of context to your stories. They can really help flesh them out. But understanding that yourself, I think is a big key.
Yep.
And then the last one he has is leadership. You are a leader. You are leading the product. You are leading the teams. You have to give them that vision, those goals, and get them on board with you. You have to be able to inspire them or to make them interested in the product and where it's going. I always like to have a little elevator speech, 30-second elevator speech for, what we're doing and where we're at. That's one of the things that they teach you in classes and you read in blogs. It's, as a leader, you should always know what your teams are doing and talk positively about that. And to the team, you should be able to tell how that's impacting the business, how it's making their jobs better, how it's going to make their jobs better when you get that product out. I think that's important. So a lot of talking, a lot of collaboration, a lot of leadership, falls into that.
I think Bob would be proud of you.
You think so?
I think so.
I'm sure we'll find out.
I think Bob would agree with you too.
Well, he wrote it.
Exactly.
So, I think so. Some of the other things that I think we've put in there. So you said, we mentioned creative.
Yes.
I think the user experience.
Yes.
Is important. You don't have to be a designer, but you can design. You have to undertake what is this going to get for the user? How are they going to use this product? That's an important thing. I always love having UX and UI people, on my team, designers, just because it makes the experience better. And you did that.
I did.
We've played in Balsamic.
I love Balsamic. I would do my entire job in Balsamic if I could. And I've been saying that for years.
Can we put a Gantt chart in Balsamic?
I don't think they allow for Gantt charts.
God, I hope not. We'd like to do a Gantt chart. 9. So release management, obviously we got to get something out of the door. Otherwise we haven't really done anything. So understanding the release process, I think, is something you have to understand at your company, and it's going to be different everywhere.
Yes.
But understanding we're going through that right now, and it's a learning experience is the pleasant way I'll put that. Mm-hmm. But it can be very trying. One of the nice things is that Heinrich has said a couple times, we'll get to him, is the earlier or the more often you release, the easier it gets. And I definitely want to have that. We want to release early and often.
Yeah, didn't you say the other day you wanted to release 30 times a day or something crazy?
Well, we were talking about Etsy and how many times they release.
Right.
And they release about 30 things a day.
Interesting.
I think that's more DevOps stuff.
That's kind of extreme.
Which we'll learn more about later.
Okay.
Feedback, you have to be able to collect feedback, I think, from your users and constructively collect that feedback. Use that feedback in your stories and what you're doing. I think that's important. So always be willing to accept feedback from anybody.
We didn't, sorry to interrupt you, but we haven't talked about transparency. I think it's really important for a product owner.
Is that a skill?
I think so.
Transparency is a skill?
I think transparency is a skill because there are certain people that don't want to provide any information. They want to hold on to it and hoard it. And then there are others that, we're very transparent. So I think that's an important skill. I just thought about that. Sorry, I completely interrupted you.
How do you learn that skill? I'm curious.
That's a good question.
Okay.
Let me think on that.
Okay.
All right.
But the last one I had down there was testing.
Yes.
I think that a product owner should always be testing. During the sprint, during any kind of integration testing or user testing that you've got, any kind of acceptance, you should always be testing because you should know where your product's at. The developers can say something and the testers can say something. Until you use it yourself, you don't know. And again, you are representing the user. You're not the user. I think is a key thing. You represent the customer, but you are not them. But you can give guidance. You can test things out, especially if it's on something that is, you've got the interfaces built or you've got a UI built. Play around with it. Spend some time each day looking at your product. You have to do that.
Based on this conversation, the product owner wears a lot of different hats. Yes. And it's interesting when you think about all the facets of being a product owner and how much time is really left in the day, right? I mean, writing stories, we're running these meetings, we're testing, we're acting on behalf of the customers, we're answering questions, we're doing demos. We do a lot of work.
Yeah. And we didn't even say demos as a skill, but it's presentation. It's leadership.
Presentations.
So.
Yes.
Yeah. There are a lot of things and you do bounce back and forth quite a little bit, but depending on which framework you're using, which agile framework you're using, sometimes those things are built into the framework, so you can find times for them. Story grooming has its own meeting. Demos have their own meeting. Plannings have their own meetings. And then, during the day, you get to find time to meet with customers, to write stories, to review stories with the team, to test, to do all those things.
Either way, you have to be extremely organized.
It helps. Yeah.
And multicolored pens, that's always a good organizational tool.
My pens.
I know. I have a whole new set of pens too. I do. They're fantastic.
Do you have different color stickies?
Yes.
Of course.
Of course. The whole entire rainbow.
Why would you not? So we talked about, one specific thing. So you are representing the customer to the team. You are not the customer. They are the ones that are going to use this for their job. You're not going to use it for your job, unless you actually are. But anyway, so keep that in mind when you're talking in meetings, when you're talking to the customers, understand what their goals are, understand where they're going, but always get their feedback, because you're always going to learn more from their feedback than you are from you using the product. One thing I think is important is on a lot of applications and a lot of products, you want to be user-centered, not user-led. We want to find out what the user does in their day-to-day process. We want to find out what their goals are, so that we can build that vision and the goals. I don't want to just take direction from the user. I don't want the users to say to me, make it blue, or this button should be here, or we should have a screen full of numbers, or something else like that. No, what you want is you want a designed app that meets your goals.
Right.
And we're going to focus on you, but you're not going to drive this process.
Everybody wants a solution to the problem.
Yeah. Or say this is the tool to throw at this problem.
Right.
No.
Here's a solution. Well, let me understand the process first and then the problem. Yeah. So, I think that at the end of the day, we need to expect solid software. So that means no weird behaviors, no severe defects, nothing that's cringeworthy. Someone's going to look at our application and, oh, what is that? We don't want that.
No, we have, whatever we're releasing has to be a high quality product.
Yes.
It has to be. That's the one thing I do not negotiate on with
Neither
products is this is going to be a high quality product. We're going to have it tested. We're going to release it. It's going to work.
Right. And a big part of this is actually verifying that the outputs match the results. So, looking at you wrote your acceptance criteria, you need to test your acceptance criteria and make sure that everything is a pass. So, if one thing's a fail, it goes right back to the developer, because at the end of the day, I've got to put the stamp of approval on whatever it is that we're delivering. Yeah. So we shouldn't expect anything short of excellence.
That's right.
Yes. You preach it, girl.
You were talking to yourself.
I was talking to myself.
Okay, good.
You didn't say it, so I had to say it for myself.
Well, that's fine. It's perfectly reasonable.
Yes.
Some of the things that the role is not. So let's clear up a little bit of confusion here. As we mentioned, we don't tell the team how to build something. We don't pick the technology. Not our job. If we're doing that, we're doing it wrong. So stop that. We don't own the process. That one's hard for me sometimes, but I have and I've worked with very strong coaches and very strong scrum masters who help remind me of that. And every once in a while, I'm able to dial that back and go, okay, that's something that should be decided by that role or that person in this role, and not me. I have an opinion about it.
Of course you do.
God knows. But I don't push those things, or I try not to.
You have to let go of some of the control.
Yeah, you do. But you really need your agile coaches and your scrum masters to help you with that. They can
if you're lucky enough to have them.
If you're lucky enough to have them.
Yes. Agreed.
Absolutely. And you are not the managers of the team. Mm-mm. We should have resource managers for both developers and testers, analysts, project managers. Those people should be part of the team, but you should not be directly managing them unless, of course, you're in a situation where you have to. And if you're in that situation, you have to know which hat you're wearing when you're doing something. Am I wearing my project manager hat? Am I wearing my development manager hat? What am I doing when I'm talking to somebody about something?
Do we have a future topic on team dynamics and structure?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure.
Yeah,
very good. Okay. So we'll talk about that later.
And the questionable things, the things that I find are questionable, are the things I like to kind of push, but I'm not sure if they're actual product owner things, are things like team structure, organization efforts. How do we set up when we're running a product at scale, when we've got, 5, 10, 100 teams? How do we scale that? What role does a product owner play in that? Do we get to say we want 5 developers, 2 testers on a team? Do we get to say that we want to have feature teams instead of component teams? I like doing that. That's part of the things that as a product owner I like doing. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to do it, but until somebody tells me to stop, I'm going to go ahead and keep doing it. because it's fun. I mean, it's fun for me to the organization because you help deliver. You set things up so they deliver. And that's why I like that.
Yep. You know, when I first became a product owner, there were two things. There was a book that I read and there was a video that I watched that really helped me a lot learning all about the basics of product ownership. The book that I read was called Scrum Product Ownership, and it's by Bob Galen, our buddy. And he focuses on the PO role, how it interacts with the Scrum team. And it's the first book I ever read. I learned a ton from it, and I would definitely suggest it as a very good reference material for anyone who wants to learn a little bit more.
It's a very good book.
It is a very good book. And then the second thing, and I love this, and I actually will watch this every couple months just because I adore it. There's a video. It's called Agile in a Nutshell, and it's by Henrik Nyberg. He has, I think is he Swedish or Finnish?
Some Scandinavian-ish.
He's got the cutest little accent. So ladies, if you're interested, he's got a great accent. But the video is basically, he calls it a 1-day product ownership course, compressed. And it's a high-level summary. He puts it into a 15-minute animation. It's on YouTube. And what's great about it is it's good for if you have a bit of a attention deficit disorder, little ADD, because the way it's all animated and, listening to him, it's a great little video short. So I would definitely recommend Agile in a Nutshell.
I think it's Product Owner in a Nutshell.
It's Product Owner in a Nutshell?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
We'll put a link to it on there. We'll look and see. But it is a great video.
Henrik Nyberg.
It is a great video, though. That's something that whenever anybody wants to know more about it, that's the first thing I always send them, is that it's 15 minutes. You learn more and you get a lot of information.
Are you sure it's Agile? I feel like I want to bet you on this, like $1.
Okay, we'll have to look after the show. Standard bet, $1?
Yeah, $1.
Okay. Some other things that I think are really useful, if you're looking at resources as a new product owner or as somebody who's been doing this for a while. The Certified Scrum Product Ownership, we'll talk about certifications in a future show, but the Scrum Alliance has a lot of good information. Agile Alliance has a lot of good information. So the big organizations, I think you can get some information from simply because there's good articles and there's good information there. There's an actual list called the Product Owner Daily that Lucas Gomeka puts out every day. It is a great resource. It links a lot of articles about product ownership and Agile in general in that list. And that's really good. I found a lot of good stuff off of that. The other thing that I've been having a lot of interest in is the LinkedIn groups that are out there.
There's a lot.
There's a lot, and there's 3 or 4 that are dedicated strictly to product ownership. There's a lot of Agile UX, and there's a lot of Agile practitioner and Scrum fans and all kinds of stuff. But there is an actual CSPO, and there's a product owner group, and those are great sources or good sources of information to at least participate in discussions that you can.
Yeah, those are all really good references. I like it. I like it, Cory.
And
it's all good.
The bet will be decided later.
$1.
$1.
So, we want to get feedback from our listeners. I'm looking at my bunnies right now, the PO bunnies.
Are they saying anything?
They said, you guys are awesome. They sing too,
It's a little creepy.
So I want to get some feedback from our listeners on any questions that they may have in the PO space. Any sort of problems that they're facing. I'd love to hear some good ideas for improvements or any issues with the show itself. So reach out to us.
Yep. And we're online at deliveritcast.com, on Twitter at deliveritcast, and you can email us at feedback@deliveritcast.com. We do have a question.
We have a question of the week.
Do you want to go ahead and read it?
Sure. So this was a question from a PO. She asks, and I quote, "Do you have to ask your developers technical questions to make sure they understand what needs to be done on a story? Or do you expect them to do the research and ask questions?" Cory?
Do you have to ask your developers technical questions? I'm curious, is that because there's a technical story, or is it because we're just asking?
I think she came in from the standpoint of the how, and maybe the developers weren't quite sure what the how was, or maybe even how to get to the how.
Okay. Usually on things that the team doesn't understand how they're going to implement, that's a dead giveaway that we need a research spike. So the research spikes, in my mind, are things that we do so the team understands how to implement something. So if they don't understand something, you spike it, and then as an outcome of that spike, the team should understand what they're going to do for implementation.
Do you think there's any questions that the PO can ask to identify whether or not a technical spike is necessary?
Yeah. I mean, if it's something that the team has done before, similar that they've done before, then I think they have the technical understanding at least, and knowledge to do something.
I'm just kind of thinking about, maybe new developers that are kind of fresh and maybe they're not quite sure of how to go about doing something. And is the expectation for the PO to help guide them, or is the expectation for the PO to say, you know what, you figure it out?
I think the expectation is for the PO to understand what the team needs. Mm-hmm. So if the team needs an understanding on a particular, if it's an understanding of the business value, then that's something the product owner should explain and diagram and chart and make sure is part of the story or part of the acceptance criteria. If it's the product owner understands it, the team understands what the product owner is asking for, if they don't understand how they're going to accomplish that, and it's because of the technology or something they haven't touched before, then I think you need a research spike for that. And very simple research spike, spend X amount of days or spend X amount of time in the sprint, understand this is the file we're going to use or this is the technology we're going to use, dig into it a little bit, find out how you're actually going to build that. Maybe do a prototype, maybe do a proof of concept.
I would think too that, maybe the product owner can point them towards people that could help them.
Sure.
Like, go talk to Bob over there. He's an expert on whatever it is. So I think that we can help guide them. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to be able to tell them how to technically accomplish something.
No, I don't think so. No.
You wouldn't want me to tell you how to do that. We'd never get anything built.
Yes.
It's true. It's true.
Does that help? I don't know. We'll have to ask whoever submitted this question if that helps.
Well, I will ask the person to listen to the podcast.
Okay.
And see if we've answered her question.
We'll have another listener at that point.
We'll have another listener.
And if you have a question, again, please send them in. We're curious to see what problems are out there or suggestions are out there for any of the things that we talk about.
I also want to hear about good things. Tell me what's working
Absolutely.
for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do that. And actually, we're tossing around two topics for our next show. We're tossing around either backlogs, to talk about backlogs, or stories. Now, these things we're going to talk about multiple times because one 20 to 15 minute segment is not going to cover everything, but we're going to come back to them. But we're thinking either backlogs or stories.
Stories.
If you have an opinion.
Without a story, you don't have a backlog.
Where do you put the story?
Do you really want me to answer that?
No. So if you have an idea or if you have a question about either of those, please send it in to us and help us kind of formulate our next show.
I think we should talk about stories.
I know.
Just my 2 cents.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Nothing else for me.
Do you like that?
I think we exhausted the basics of what a PO is.
I'm sure there's more, but I hope we covered at least high level enough information for people to go, yeah, that's right, or no, I'm not doing that. Why am I not doing that?
I'd love to hear their opinion about the show as well.
Yes.
Drop us a line. We're open and approachable and honest and transparent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
All the things a PO is.
Yes.
Right.
So as we wrap up this episode, 1 of Deliberate,
the actual episode,
we have a disclaimer because Kim and I are employed and we want to stay employed.
We do.
So these words are our own and are not endorsed or representative of any company or organization. Although, again, if you wanted to, you could endorse our words.
You could, if you felt the need.
We're open to that. If you want to reach Kim, you can contact her through the show info.
Yes.
That we detailed.
Show info.
If you want to reach out to me, I'm on Twitter at @isCoryBryan. And I infrequently blog at don'tloveme.wordpress.com.
Fantastic.
And that is episode 1 of Deliberate. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we'll be back next time.
See you in a couple weeks.